and I'm going to call the meeting to order. Today is April the 15th of 2021. It is 6 o'clock, and I'm calling this meeting to order. Can we have roll call, please?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Chairman Erasmo Villarreal.
Present.
Vice Chair Jorge Dominguez. Jorge Dominguez.
He's going to be absent.
Commissioner Rafael Dueñas.
Present.
Commissioner Abraham Lugo.
Present.
Commissioner Johnny Narvaez.
Present.
Commissioner Raul Ugalde. Commissioner Raul Ugalde. Commissioner Larry Dovalina.
Here.
And Commissioner Ana Gabriela Villarreal. Commissioner Ana Villarreal did call in and asked that she be excused by the commission.
All right.
And Mr. Chairman, you do have quorum.
All right. I do know that Commissioner Ugalde called me. He was having trouble getting into the meeting. Commissioner Dominguez called me that he was going to be not able to attend the meeting. He had something that he had to get done, medical procedure in his eyes. So I would like to have a motion to excuse the commissioners that are not here, which is Dominguez, Villarreal, and at this point, Ugalde, until maybe he can sign on.
So move.
We have a motion. We have a second.
Second, Commissioner Lugo.
Lugo seconds. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Motion carries. Next
And
item.
For the record, that motion was made by Mr. Dovalina. If you can, when you make a motion or a second, if you can provide your name for the record, please. Thank you.
All right. Do we have any citizens' comments on the line right now?
Well, as you know, we have a lag in the broadcast, so if you can pause here for just a minute and give the public an opportunity to see if they'll call in. We will alert you if anyone does call in. At this point, it's a good time to remind everybody to please keep your mics muted. We've asked the applicants who are here today or representatives who are here today to stay unmuted and to suspend their video until not when their item comes up, but when you, Chairman Villarreal, ask for their comment. At that point, then they can unmute and share their video. That way it keeps it a lot easier for us to manage from this end.
Surely.
And we'd also ask the commissioners if you can also stay muted until until you have a comment that helps with the feedback. We appreciate it very much. And if I do mute you, I don't mean to be rude. I'm just trying to preserve the audio quality for the public and for our record. And it appears we have no public comment at this point.
All right. Then we're going to move right on to item number 4, public hearings and recommendations of an ordinance. Letter A, amending the zoning ordinance of the city of Laredo by rezoning lots 1, 2, 3, Block 82 Eastern Division, located 602 Corpus Christi Street, from a B1 to a B4. Yes, sir.
Ms. Guerra?
Good evening, Vanessa Guerra for the record. The applicant is Alberto Flores, owner. The property is described as lots 1, 2, and 3, Block 82, Eastern Division, located at 602 Corpus Christi Street. The zone change request is from B1, Limited Commercial District, to B4, Highway Commercial District. The proposed use is amusement redemption machine establishment. 31 letters were sent out, none were received for or against. This is a location map. This is an aerial view, a street view. This is a zoning map. As you can see, it's predominantly B1 in that area with R3 and a bit of B3 to the west. The future land use designates this area as neighborhood mixed use with high density residential to the north. Staff does not support the proposed zone change. It is not in conformance with the neighborhood mixed use designation. It does not meet the location requirements for B4 districts that they be located along major arterials or freeways. Corpus Christi is not identified on the thoroughfare plan, and the proposed use is dissimilar to the primarily residential and light commercial uses in the area. And that is the proposed motion, either approval or denial.
Okay.
And that's the phone number.
Thank you very much. This is a public hearing. Anybody who wishes to speak in favor or against the proposed zone change?
We do have the applicant present if you wish to hear from
Yes,
them.
sir. Go right ahead.
Mr. Flores?
Mr. Flores, can you hear us?
I can hear you.
Okay, Mr. Flores, go ahead. This is a public hearing. If anybody wants to speak for or against the zone change.
Do, do, the changes were, I'm trying to sell the property, and the changes are trying to be made because the person interest on the side, he's interested in putting maquinitas there, and he would buy the property with that condition if I could, make it into a B4.
Okay. All right. Does anybody in the commission have any questions for Mr. Flores?
Dueñas, Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Quiero entender, ¿el cambio de zona lo quiere para vender la propiedad? Es pregunta.
Correcto. Sí, sí, correcto. Esa es la condición que me dieron ellos, si acaso ellos me compraban en esa condición. Sí se podía, ¿verdad?
¿Y qué es lo que le falta? La ciudad no le está apoyando el cambio de zona. ¿Por qué? ¿Cuáles son los motivos?
No tengo entendido eso, sí. No.
Disculpe, si gusta, yo les puedo responder.
Sí, Vane, por favor.
Sí, can you put it back to the reasoning? Es que el cambio de zona propuesta no conforma con los usos que se encuentran ahí cerca de ese lugar, que son primariamente residencial con usos comerciales, pero leves. No cumple tampoco con el requisito de donde se deben de localizar estos tipos de usos, lo que son de B4, que deben de ser como en una carretera, un freeway. Corpus Christi, claro, no está designado por el Thoroughfare Plan como carretera, y también no cumple con el designado de Neighborhood Mixed Use, o sea, de vecindad, esa designación que tiene el plan comprensivo de Laredo.
Gracias.
Por esas razones no estamos apoyando.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
¿Alguna otra pregunta? Anybody else on the commission have any questions from the staff or from Mr. Flores?
I have a question for staff.
Yes, sir.
In the situation with Maquinitas, would a CUP, if just hypothetical speaking, would a CUP be appropriate in a situation like this if it was a B1 and they wanted to do Maquinitas?
Well, our recommendation staff would still be to not support that type of use in this neighborhood.
Okay. What I'm seeing here, I mean, the whole neighborhood is to be jumping up to a B4, a high tense use. I just don't see it appropriate in this situation. So my personal opinion here is not to support this item and to support staff because of the situation.
Okay. Does anybody else, any other commissioner have any other comments on this? All right, this is a public hearing. Anybody who wishes to speak. Thank you, Mr. Flores, for your input. Thank you very much. This is a public hearing. Anybody else who wishes to speak for or against this item? For or against the item?
We have no one else on the line.
You have no one else on the line. All right. Being that that's the case, what are the wishes of the commission?
I'll make a motion to close public hearing and support staff recommendation on denial of zone change.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Commissioner Lugo, I second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those who are not in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. With none heard, motion carries. Thank you. The next item, amending the zoning ordinance of the city of Laredo by rezoning approximately 55.9260 acres out of Porción 12 and Porción 13, Abstract 51, J&M Garcia, located south of FM 1472 and northwest of Vidal Cantu Road from B4 to M1 Light Manufacturing. All right, who's gonna make this presentation?
I will, sir.
Okay,
The applicant is FM 1472 Investments, Inc., Kurt Kraus, Managing Partner and Representative. The property is a 55.9260 acre tract located south of FM 1472 and northwest of Vidal Cantu Road. The request is from B4 Highway Commercial District to M1 Light Manufacturing District. Proposed use is light commercial. The owner, when queried, mentioned that although there were no specific uses identified at this time, the prospective uses will be light industrial in nature. 12 letters were sent out and none were received, either for or against. There's a location map. This is an aerial view, a street view. This is zoning. As you can see, it's zoned M1 with M1 to the west, south, and east of it, with some AG also to the north and east. It's designated as it's designated as neighborhood mixed use with agricultural rural, with some medium density residential to the south and light industrial to the east. And staff supports the proposed zone change. The property abuts M1 zoning to the west and south, and although not in conformance with the comprehensive plan, the zone is generally compatible with the surrounding uses and zones. It also meets the lot area and lot width requirements for M1 zones. And there's the proposed motion. There's the phone for the call-in.
thank you for your presentation. This is a public hearing. Anybody who wishes to speak in favor or against the proposed zone change?
Yes, for the record, Judd Gilpin. I'm representing Kurt Kraus in FM 1472, and myself and Kurt Kraus are available to answer any questions, and we support the zone case.
All right, thank you. Does anybody in the commission have any questions for Mr. Judd Gilpin?
I have some questions.
All right.
There is a lighting system that is in front of that location on the south part of 1472, which is not lit. Is that because that's part of your project, or will you have additional lighting related to that?
The lighting out there is being installed by TxDOT, and it's new, and I can only imagine that if they don't have it turned on yet, maybe they haven't finished.
What about acceleration and deceleration lanes?
We've turned in all of our access points to TxDOT and made sure that we comply, and we have been required to add acceleration and deceleration lanes in some location, actually in all locations where we connect with FM 1472.
That's all I got.
All right. Anybody else on the commission have any questions for Mr. Gilpin? All right, with none heard. Thank you very much, Mr. Gilpin, for your input. This is a public hearing. Anybody who wishes to speak for or against the zone change, for or against. Do we have anybody else on the line?
No, sir, we don't.
We don't have anybody else on the line. All right. What are the wishes of the commission?
Motion to recommend as presented by staff.
Okay. We have a
Lovalina.
motion by Mr. Lovalina. Do we have a second?
Second,
Second.
Dueña.
Dueña seconds it. All those who are not in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. With none heard, motion carries. The next item, amending the zoning ordinance of the city of Laredo by rezoning lots 1, 2, 7, and 8, block 2111 Eastern Division, located at 3100 State Highway 359 from B3 to M1. All right, Vanessa?
The applicant is JP2 Properties LLC, Carlos San Miguel owner. PEUA Consulting is the engineer. It's lots 1, 2, 7, and 8, block 2111 Eastern Division, located at 3100 State Highway 359. The zone changes request is from B3 Community Business District to M1 Light Manufacturing District. Proposed use is light industrial. The applicant did not specify a specific proposed use. The 16 letters were sent out and none were received either for or against. This is a location map. This is an aerial view. Street view. It's zoned B3 with R3 to the north with some B4 to the east. And it's designated neighborhood mixed use with high density residential to the north. Staff does support the proposed zone change. It's located along an expressway and a truck route. There are no residential uses abutting the site. And although not in conformance with the neighborhood mixed use designation, which excludes M1 zoning, it is compatible with the mix of light industrial uses along the corridor. There's the recommendation, the motion. And the phone number.
Can you do me a favor? Can you put back the zoning map? Right there. Okay. So we have B3, we have R3 to the north. What is to the south of this property? What is the zoning?
It's B3 as well. There's
B3.
just a tiny bit of M1 right there, sort of catty corner.
All right, that's exactly what I was trying to figure out. We're at North India and 359. Is this on the west side of Highway 83?
This is on the, east. It's east.
It's in the east side of Highway 83.
Yeah.
Okay. So you guys are saying M1 is an acceptable zone.
It's.
What is next to this particular property on that aerial that you showed me? Was that a residential structure, an apartment complex? Or what?
No, it's a, it's listed on the uses. Hold on. I think if I remember, it was a pottery place, maybe. It's like a commercial use.
It's okay. Commercial
Is
use.
this where the old tabloid publishing thing used to be, and Rodriguez Pipe and Steel is to the east?
Okay.
Is that where it is? Didn't we buy the?
Correct. This is the pipe and steel place over here, block 218.
Yeah. So 1868 is owned by the city.
Should be.
68.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
where we bought those properties in
Yeah,
order
there's a trail right there.
to do the Chacon Creek Parkway.
Yeah, you can see the trail.
And you're gonna change.
Larry, you're muted.
Yeah,
You're gonna change it to M1.
we're supportive of it because of the location and it meeting the dimensional requirements.
And that's less than a block from where you're proposing to invest hundreds of thousands of dollars in a linear park.
Yeah.
This park here is a park that the city is proposing to run all the way to the river. It begins.
Chacon Creek already does run to the river, and we're hoping to expand it north. It's about 4.5 miles long.
Yeah.
What you see here in the grid pattern, those are paper streets. The city owns that right of way, and where the city owns that property is right of way. So what you're seeing in hashed red is the only property that could be developed. So there is a buffer between that and the trail, as you can see on the aerial.
But it would preclude the city from then developing that property into additional park space if you have industrial use across the street from it.
There is no anticipation of developing Chacon Creek Trail in that area further. It is already developed and serves as a trail for people to travel through.
I thought there was a big investment coming in to redo that whole area, like millions of dollars.
Yes,
That's
Not expanding.
what I was aware of. There's millions of dollars coming into that area to redo not only the channel coming in right behind that subdivision that's there, but also to enhance this particular trail system.
And you've got
That
a,
was a huge number, like 50 million or somewhere in there.
this is a bigger plan that was it started when it was during our administration. In Erasmo, I think you purchased the property when you were at CD.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the intent is to go all the way up to Casablanca, or at least that's what the intent was previously. I don't know if it's changed now.
No, that still is the plan, but the trail at this location is not going to be expanded in its width or, maybe repaved at some point. That is not in the plan as far as I'm aware. The plan to expand Chacon Creek would be north of I believe Saunders, where.
No, it's directly north of this property. Directly north of this property, you have a subdivision. And that's the area that they're going to buy additional housing where the creek curves. And they're going to go ahead and widen the creek there. And that whole area is going to be worked on.
You have a flooding issue.
20
You have
years.
a flooding issue at Villa del Sol.
Yeah, Villa del Sol is the name of the subdivision. Yeah. So, yeah, this is. I agree with Larry there. You got a conflict here because that area is going to be developing a little differently.
The applicant doesn't know what he's gonna do.
No, he did not mention a specific use, no.
Wow.
Just for your reference, Chacon Creek currently extends from the river and it passes this area, which is right here, 359, and it continues all the way up.
Yeah.
Currently,
And it gets to Casablanca.
We're
no, it
aware.
doesn't go that far yet. It doesn't go that far yet.
Or at
We're
least-
aware because we ended up getting this lake that you see there
Yeah.
in this map that we're currently looking at, and David Killam donated that lake to us, and we ended up taking all the tires out of it.
Cleaning it out. Yeah.
And at some point, the land that's north of Clark that you see there in the background, this is Walmart that's there, was also promised to us by David Killam many years ago. And I'm sure that the intent is still to do that. But again, I don't know what the current plan is. But
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what we're going to do. I'm going to open up this public hearing to see, is this a public hearing? Anybody who wishes to speak in favor or against the zone change? In favor or against the zone change? Do we have anybody on the?
Hello, Commissioner, Chairman, and staff. This is Oscar Castillo with Pegua Consulting, representing JP2 Properties, and we are for the zone change and to answer any questions that you may have.
Oscar, do you know if there's any use right now that is being proposed other than just a zone change?
Not that I know of. No, I assume it's gonna be used for the owner has a construction company, so I will to park his trucks and equipment there.
Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you. Anybody else on the commission have any questions for Mr. Castillo?
Dueñas,
Yes, sir.
Chairman. Oscar, ¿tenemos ya un plan así de las entradas y las salidas que va a tener este predio?
Es un predio muy pequeño realmente y tiene una entrada. No hay ahorita un site plan, pero debe de ser una entrada en medio. Yo creo que en medio que se va a estar como entrada y salida. Como digo, es un terreno relativamente pequeño.
Sí, lo vemos. Ok, gracias, Oscar.
Okay. Anybody else on the commission have any questions for Mr. Castillo?
Is there currently an entrance there, or is he gonna have to apply for an entrance from TxDOT?
He will.
He will have to apply for an entrance there.
He'll have to plat, and when it goes through the platting process, that will all be worked out.
So is
That's
he
also
1,000
problematic.
feet away from the other driveway that's next to him at the steel company?
Yes, that the steel company. It is a little far to the east, not too far, but I think there's a good space between the property and that driveway. But yeah, we will have to sort that out with TxDOT. Absolutely.
Yeah, but the other thing, Oscar, is it's pretty close to the bridge there, the property. It's excellent for entrance or exit. That may become problem, especially if you're gonna go to manufacturing and you have trucks going in and out of there. That becomes tight, real tight. Okay. All right. Anybody else on the commission have any questions or concerns for Mr. Castillo? All right, with none heard, thank you, Mr. Castillo, for your input. This is a public hearing. Anybody who wishes to speak for or against? Do we have anybody else on the line, Kirby?
No, sir, we don't.
All right, with nobody else on the line wishing to speak for or against, what are the wishes of the commission?
I'll make a motion to close public hearing and support staff recommendation for the zone change. Narvaez.
We have a motion from Commissioner Narvaez. Commissioner Dueñas seconds the motion. All those who are not in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. I am not in favor of the motion.
Aye.
Larry's not in favor of the motion. All right. So there's 2 against. Motion carries. The next item is the amending of the zoning map of the city of Laredo by rezoning approximately 4.74 acres of land conveyed by deed to Martinez Paving Company and Cesar Martinez and George Martinez, located north of Highway 359 and east of Loop 20 from R1 to B4.
That's correct. The applicant, as you said, was George and Cesar Martinez, Martinez Paving Co. PUA is the consulting, is the engineer of record. A 4.74 acre tract located at north of US Highway 359 and east of Loop 20. The request is from R1, single family residential, to B4, Highway Commercial District. The proposed use is commercial. Again, the applicant has not identified a specific use. 11 letters sent out, none received for or against. This is a location map. This is the aerial view, street view. Zoning, it is predominantly R1 along the highway at that location. There's some M1 to the south and some AG agricultural zoning north of it. It's designated as low density residential along that portion of the highway, with light industrial designated north of it. Staff supports the proposed zone change. It's appropriate at this location despite its nonconformity with the comprehensive plans designation as low density residential, as it meets the B4 location requirements, that it be located along a principal arterial or expressway. Of course, it meets the minimum lot size requirements, and it will allow uses that are compatible with the existing surrounding area. There's the proposed motion and the phone number for the public to call in.
Okay. Do you have an aerial of the location? Okay. Thank you. This is a public hearing. Anybody who wishes to speak for or against, for or against. Do we have somebody on the line?
No, sir, we don't.
We don't have anybody who wishes to speak for or against this item. All right, so there's nobody on the line.
No,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
can you hear me?
Yes,
Sorry, I apologize for that. This is Oscar Castillo with Tegua Consulting, representing George Martinez, Cesar Martinez, and Martinez Paving. We are for this rezoning and here to answer any questions.
okay. Does anybody in the commission have any questions for Mr. Castillo?
I just have a comment. This is the ugliest highway coming into the city of Laredo with all the junkyards that are all up and down the highway. Nobody's done an effort to clean it up. You know, we've just approved one project without a specified use. Who knows if it's another junkyard? This property is basically, again, coming to us with no proposed use. I don't know how you control the designations and what goes in them after you do B4. Junkyards are allowed in B4. You're supporting B4. I don't see how you can continue to approve things like this if you ever expect that highway to get cleaned up.
Okay,
I don't think, is it junkyards allowed in B4?
I don't believe so, but let me check.
I think you need an M1.
you're in M1. Yeah.
Hello, Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Yes,
We do have Ms. Adriana Gaona for the record, who wants to speak in regard to this item.
Ms. Bernetta, if we can wait till Mr. Villarreal is finished, Mr. Castillo.
I'll ask her to come on in a few minutes. We're trying to resolve an issue right now, okay? So is the junkyard in M1, is that correct?
Hold on, let me get there.
Kirby knows it right off the top of his head. Kirby?
I'm gonna say no, because that's a transfer station or place station.
M1 for a junkyard.
Yeah, that's right. M1.
Yeah, I believe so.
Well, verify it.
We will. We'll get back to you. If you would have any other questions for the representative or for the,
I have one other question. On a B4 is I noticed that this is Martinez Paving Company. So this is like a construction company that does paving and stuff like that. Would their use be allowed in a B4?
Even though this is their development, I don't believe they plan to take any of these lots.
Okay,
So this is not for personal use.
okay. That's
It's
okay.
for a master plan that they're providing.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. All right, does anybody else have any questions or any concerns from the commission for Mr. Castillo? But none heard. All right, we do have one other applicant who wishes to speak on this item. Can you put the applicant on, please?
Hello? Yes, Mr. Chairman. For the record, we do have Ms. Adriana Gaona on the line. Ms. Adriana?
Yes, Ms. Gaona, go ahead.
Good evening, gentlemen and ladies. The reason why I am asking for clarification on this item is I actually have a house right next to it. I am west of it. So I would like, B4 lends itself to a wide range of businesses. I'm not saying I'm against any type of business there, but it does affect our home that's right next to it. I know they said that there was low residential. We do have a house right there next to it on the border of that.
Okay, can somebody address her question? Vanessa?
Mr.
Well, I
Castillo,
Yes.
you did not provide us a specified use. Can you do so at this point? What is intended?
Yes. What I can say is that this is gonna be a master plan with a lot of residential. So even though right now those are just gonna be developed to a smaller, right now we have a plan that will be presented to staff for three commercial lots. But most of the master plan is residential. So it'll be a nice development. Because it's in the best interest of the developer to have something to that goes with the development that he is doing. So.
Excuse me if I may, this is Juan Salinas. I'm here with Oscar because I think the website was down earlier. I couldn't log on to put my name in there, but what we're planning there is about a 600 lot development. This is on a larger 120 acre site. It's going to be a master plan development with commercial up front, and this specific tract here represents 3 lots, and our target market, we're going to have a large right of way going right adjacent to this. So we're going to be targeting retail primarily, like a dollar store, a restaurant, perhaps a convenience store in the corner. Those are the kind of uses that we're going to be targeting, something that's going to be in line with the master plan behind it.
Okay, very good. Ms.
But
Gaona,
just to be clear, are you going to do waste disposal at this location? Well, just kidding, because you can't. It's not permitted in B4. Waste disposal or waste transfer is not permitted in
Right,
No,
right.
and I think the M1 uses that we were referring to before, like the junkyards and all that, yeah, that is the last thing that we were wanting here. There's some other a little bit further east, and the objective here, such a large tract, and we've got a lot of frontage. This is just the first phase. At the master plan, the first phase with the commercial and the residential is coming in. But the goal there is to develop the entire frontage with retail and perhaps some multifamily type uses. So it's in our best interest, we think, to make it look nice and complement the rest of the development.
Okay. Ms. Gaona, did that answer your question?
It does. I was just concerned that with the B4, it would be like a bar or a heavy machinery type area. Like I said, my house is right there next to it. And I kind of like that it is kind of secluded. But I do know that things do have to change a little bit. I just didn't want that next to our home.
Okay, all right. This is a public hearing. Do we have anybody else on the line who wishes to speak for or against?
It would appear no, sir.
All right, if we don't have anybody else on the line, what are the wishes of the commission?
I'll make a motion to proceed with the recommendation.
Okay, we have a motion from Larry Dovalina. Do we have a second?
Second, Dueñas.
Dueñas seconds the motion. All those who are not in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. None heard, motion carries. The next item.
Can I, Commissioner, now, just because it's important to be clear, when you said to proceed with the recommendation, when you say that, Commissioner Dovalina, we're assuming that you mean to recommend approval.
To approve, yes.
Okay.
Correct.
To approve.
Thank you.
Okay. The next item is amending the zoning ordinance map of the city of Laredo by rezoning 5.94 acres out of Lot 2 and part of Lot 1, Block 1, Escondido Subdivision, Unit 3, located west of Escondido Drive and north of US 59 from B3 to a planned unit development.
The applicant is CBA Laredo Escon, LP, POA Consulting Engineer. It's a 5.94 acre tract located west of Escondido Drive and north of US Highway 59. Zone change request is from B3 Community Business District to B3 PUD, Planned Unit Development. The proposed use is townhomes. Applicant proposes 32 structures on 64 lots. Each structure will contain 2 single-family dwellings. Structures will be located such that the shared wall is located along the property line. Each lot will therefore contain 1 single-family unit. 5 letters were sent out, none were received for or against.
I'm going to take this opportunity to remind you all about PUDs because we have not seen these in quite a while in the city. However, as you recall, we did recommend changing the rules. City Council agreed on PUDs. And so I want to remind you about PUDs and about the changes we made. Like I said, we recently changed the PUD overlay zone. Now, first thing to remind you is that we're not changing the zone, we're adding an overlay on top of the zone. I'll speak to that in a second. But the changes that we made, we eliminated the area requirements. The area requirements for PUDs were quite large before. And what we really want to get at with these PUDs is we see it as a good tool for affordable housing, because we can do, as developments get higher in density, they also get a little more complicated. And that complication makes it difficult for us to anticipate all the rules required for that type of development. And so we don't have, right now, we're working on it with RECO, we don't have rules that spell out different types of developments like condos and townhomes. Before, they were using special use permits. And I'm going to speak to that more in a second. But the changes we made, we eliminated the minimum area requirements. We clarified the rules that can be adjusted with the overlay zone, which rules can be adjusted. We clarified the site plan approval process, because this is just the first step. The zone change is the first step. They have to come back to the Planning Commission if they get the PUD overlay. They have to come back for a site plan approval, of which you are the final authority on. And then we eliminated the special use permit option for townhomes. It was never actually a legal option, but somehow it got finagled in there as a way that we did townhomes. And the problem with that is they end up taking conditions, basically a design, to the city council. And then it's the city council designing or having approval authority, design authority over townhomes, which that is, it's not ideal to have a political body being the ones that are interpreting the rules or adjusting the rules. It's more ideal, and which is why site plan approval process is the norm in most cities, where you have a non-political body, the Planning Commission, which is appointed, looks at the rules, has a little bit of understanding of the rules, and they're the ones that are approving the site plan. So we're bringing us more in line with how other cities do it. A little more on PUDs. Like I said, PUD zones are not replacing the existing, the zone that's there. They're just an overlay. So the underlying zone requirements still apply. For instance, what uses are permitted, that is based on the underlying zone. But there are requirements that can be varied, and they're only these requirements that are spelled out. The percentage of construction materials, the colors in construction materials. Now, typically the developer is not going to come in and say, they may not have a vision for what they want to do, but these are not only are these requirements that the applicant can suggest, but it's also condition or requirements that the city, the Planning Commission, and city staff can suggest as well. And I say that because with what happens a lot is with higher density development, we might say, okay, that is pretty dense, but for that neighborhood to do something that dense, maybe you need to make it a little nicer so it fits in. So the city, the Planning Commission has authority, and the staff will often recommend, if you're going to do this in this neighborhood, maybe you need to use materials that are a little nicer or design it in a certain way. And one of the requirements is they actually show you elevations of what it's going to look like, so that you get to see that. The minimum lot height and setback dimensions can be varied, and that's going to be probably the most popular requirement that you see applicants requesting to vary. The fencing and screening types, the density, the parking, and the street and sidewalk configuration can also be adjusted, but this requires the traffic director to sign off on any of these changes. So that's very important. And again, I want to reiterate that the PUD, the zone change for a PUD is right now. And while we encourage them to submit something preliminary just to show us what they're thinking, it is in no way being approved at this point. And while we preliminary provide some comments back, those are not the limit to our comments. And you may see a total different design from what they're submitting here, either because we're requesting it or they change their mind, and that's perfectly okay. All we're saying here is at this location, we are okay with seeing something creatively done, which typically will be higher in density. With that, I'll turn it back over to Ms. Guerra.
This is a location map. This is an aerial view. This is a street view. And this is zone map. You see that it's zone B3. There's a section of agricultural AG zone area north of it. And there's a tiny M1 and B4 just south.
So a good point to point out here, again, in the B3 zone, townhomes are permitted, but they don't want to use the lot size requirements with the B3 zone, which is why they want to do an overlay zone so they can vary the lot sizes to be smaller.
This is a future land use, and you see it's designated high density residential with neighborhood mixed use just to the south and west, and parks designated to the north and agricultural rural farther north. Staff supports a proposed zone change. It's in conformance with the comprehensive plan's designation for this area's high density residential, and it's compatible with existing surrounding uses and zones. This is a preliminary layout. As we mentioned previously, they're proposing 64 lots, and they did not notice or did not indicate the structures, but they related to us that they're planning to do 2 unit structures that would, the shared wall would be located at the property line so that every lot would have 1 single family unit located within a 2-unit structure.
Now, just to reiterate, and we might do this with the first PUDs that come across, just so you're familiar as you get accustomed to seeing these. This is not a site plan. This is just a layout. A site plan, the requirements of the site plan are spelled out in the ordinance, and they'll typically come in multiple pages because you can't fit it all on one page, but they need to show landscaping, they need to show the buildings, they need to show the parking, they need to show a lot of utilities. There's a lot that goes into the site plan, and they're not required to put that together at this point. With the zone change, they're just, we ask them to show something preliminary so we get an idea what they're thinking. But again, you're not improving this. Once this gets approved, if it gets approved, they'll have to come back and submit site plan requirements as required. And at that point, then it's a negotiation with the Planning Commission based on what staff recommends and what you want to see here versus what they're thinking. And Vanessa's going to go through some of our preliminary comments that our staff, not from just our department, but from all the departments that have something to do with development, have provided. But I want you to keep something in mind. The purpose and the reason that we as staff initiated the changes to the PUD zone is because we agree with developers that we need creativity for affordable housing solutions. We need to be more permissive, and we need to allow for smaller lot development. We need to be a little more flexible in how we're thinking. So yes to all that. We want to see more affordable housing, but it's a two-way street. It's a give and take. While we're allowing for more density, which increases profitability of any of these developments, there's also a little pushback where we need to design these properly so that they work today, they work tomorrow, they work 20 years from now, they work 40 years from now. And so that's what we'll be asking you as staff. As Planning Commission, when we come back to you when the site plan approval phase comes, if it does for this one, we'll be highlighting that again and stressing that again, that we do want to keep these products affordable, these developments affordable, but we also want them to be functional, and we want them to be nice for the people that end up buying and moving and living here. And when you put a lot in a little space, it's complicated, it gets difficult. So we're trying to address those concerns based on our experience in other similar developments around the city. With that, Vanessa, I'll leave it to you to read through the preliminary comments.
Sure. As Kirby mentioned, we asked our TRB committee to review the proposed layout or the preliminary layout, and we had some preliminary comments. Those comments included that, of course, the site plan, when it does come in, should include all the information as required by the Land Development Code, which includes the requirement to include the parking layout, street layout, all the things that we want to see in the final site plan. The next comment is that a homeowners association will be required if there are any common areas including shared utilities, parking, walls, open space, or private streets. We noted that 3 parking spaces per dwelling may be needed given that the lot widths, there's no room for street parking. A communal bus stop at the front of the development may be required to facilitate child school pickup and drop off. A master meter may also be required given that the lot widths and possible conflicts with on-street parking locations. Communal trash location may be required to facilitate trash pickup. A secondary fire access south of lot 45 may require signage to prevent parking that may block access, and communal visitor parking may also be required. So this is just our staff's preliminary comments, giving the proposed developer a heads up on what we may comment once we see the final site plan.
Now, if I can, let me add to that commissioners, this really is not the time to go through the conditions and look at that layout because it's just preliminary. That will be at the site plan process. And I don't think it can zippity quick come in 2 weeks. It's going to be, they're going to have to create a site plan with multiple pages. It may take a couple meetings where they come to you and you ask for some changes or revisions and it goes back. It'll be a process. But for right now, what you should just focus on with your recommendation is this a site where you feel comfortable with higher density townhome developments on smaller lots than what's typical? You know, that's the question you should be considering as you think through the recommendation. Is this appropriate for higher density development at this location?
Very good. This is a public hearing. Anybody who wishes to speak for or against,
Hello, Mr. Chairman, commissioners, and staff. I'm Oscar Castillo with Pegua Consulting, and I'm representing the Escondido development. And we are for this PUD. As Mr. Snadman mentioned, this is the beginning of a little bigger process, but hopefully smoother than the way it was before. But we're here for to answer any questions.
Okay. Does anybody in the commission have any questions for Mr. Castillo? All right.
I have
heard. Larry, do you have a question?
Is the ownership of this property the people that are with Westwind Homes?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, Mr. Dovalina.
Thank you.
Anybody else on the commission have any questions? All right. This is a public hearing. Do we have anybody else on the line who wishes to speak for or against? For or against? Nobody else on the line?
No, sir.
All right. What are the wishes of the commission? What are the wishes of the commission?
I'll make a motion to close public hearing and supports staff recommendation.
All right. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Commissioner Lugo, second.
Commissioner Lugo seconds. All those who are not in favor of this motion signify by saying aye.
I abstain.
We have one abstention. All those, nobody else is abstaining, or so the motion carries. Next item, amending the zoning ordinance of the city of Laredo by rezoning 0.4935 acres out of block 5, Carlton Garden subdivision located at 515 West Hillside Road from B1 to B3.
Yes, the owner is Roberto and Silvia Martinez. Edward Garza is the engineer. This is a 0.4935 acre tract out of block 5 Carlton Garden subdivision located at 515 West Hillside Road. The proposed zone change is from B1 limited business district to B3 community business district. The proposed use is a quick lube, inspection business, and customer parking. Letters sent 12 and none were received, and neither for or against. This is location map. This is an aerial view. This is a street view. This is zoning. It's predominantly B1 at this location. This is the future land use. It's designated as neighborhood mixed use with institutional just north of this location. Staff supports the proposed zone change. It is in conformance with the comprehensive plan's designation of neighborhood mixed use, which includes B3 zoning for this area. It complies with the dimensional requirements for B3 zones, and it is compatible with the mix of commercial uses in the area. There's the proposed motion and the phone number.
Okay. This is a public hearing. Anybody who wishes to speak for or against?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the commission. Edward Garza with Crane Engineering here on behalf of the owners. This request is to allow the landowners to eventually develop a quick lube inspection business. They do have the plan to develop a customer parking area for their business. This is the former site of the Michael's Lock and Key, and they plan to convert that location into a quick lube. It's in their phasing and discussion of their phasing plan. They're looking also to add some customer parking for their adjacent commercial business. And so I think that's their plan to do that initially, and then we'll be developing a site plan, a formal one, to incorporate that into the final use, which would be a quick lube, an inspection type business that they want to complement their existing business. So if you have any questions on that proposed zone change, I'd be happy to try to answer them.
All right. Do we have any questions from the commissioners for Mr. Garza?
Are they gonna eliminate the junk vehicles that are sitting on that parking area?
Most definitely. As a matter of fact, Commissioner Dolina, when I first looked at this application working with the landowner, that's the first thing I told him, actually, that we needed to start a program to eliminate and organize and clean up the property. And I spoke to him again this Monday, and he told me that they do have that ongoing, and they will continue to do so until they have it properly cleaned up.
All right. Anybody else on the commission have any questions for Mr. Garza? All right. Thank you, Mr. Garza.
Thank you.
This is a public hearing. Anybody else who wishes to speak for or against the zone change? Nobody else on the line, Kirby?
No, sir.
All right. What are the wishes of the commission?
Commissioner Lugo, I'll make a motion to approve with staff's comment.
Second, Dovalina.
We have a motion from Commissioner Lugo and a second from Commissioner Dovalina to approve. I am going to abstain from this item. So all those who are not in favor of this motion signify by saying aye. With none heard, motion carries. The next item is amending the zoning ordinance of the city of Laredo by rezoning approximately 13.61 acres of land conveyed by deed to Martinez Paving and Cesar Martinez and George Martinez, located north of US Highway 359 and east of Loop 20 from AG to R1A. This is a public hearing.
The applicant is George and Cesar Martinez and Martinez Paving Company. The BOA Consulting is the engineer. This is a 13.61 acre tract located north of US Highway 359 and east of Loop 20. It is, the zone change request is from AG Agricultural District to R1A, Single Family Reduced Area District, and the proposed use is residential. Letters sent out were 10. None were received either for or against. This is a location map. This is an aerial view. If you recall, this is the tract just north of the case that we just saw approximately 2 cases ago, the 4.9 acre tract. This is a street view. This is the zoning, and you see that it's zoned AG and with R1 to the south. And it is designated light industrial for the most part, with low density residential to the south. Staff supports the zone change. Although it is not in conformance with the comprehensive plan designation of light industrial for this area, the proposed zone change will allow uses already present in the surrounding area. It's compatible with the existing surrounding zones, and it meets the dimensional requirements for R1 zones. There's the proposed motion and the telephone number.
All right. This is a public hearing. Anybody who wishes to speak for or against?
Hello, Mr. Chairman. This is Oscar Castillo, staff and commissioners. This is Oscar Castillo representing George and Cesar Martinez and Martinez Paving, and we're for this zone change and here to answer any questions.
All right, thank you. Does anybody on the commission have any questions for Mr. Castillo? All right, thank you, Mr. Castillo. Is there anybody else on the line who wishes to speak for or against?
Yes, sir. This is Mr. Chairman, commissioners, and staff. This is Juan Salinas, also speaking in favor of it. And I just wanted to mention, as Ms. Gaona had called before, she lives right next door to this site. And right adjacent to her house is where we're planning to do R1A single family residential.
Very good.
And, we'd appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Salinas? All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Salinas. This is a public hearing. Anybody else who wishes to speak for or against? For or against? Anyone else on the line, Kirby?
No, sir.
All right. What are the wishes of the commission?
I'll make a motion.
All right. Go ahead.
Motion approved, please.
You want a motion for approval? We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second advice.
Second advice. All those who are not in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. With none heard, motion carries. Thank you. The next item. Review and reconsideration of Port Grande subdivision master plan. The intent is industrial. The purpose of this revision is to reconfigure phases. All right.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, for the record, Rafael Vidaurri, the applicant, Majestic Laredo Logistics Center LLC, the engineer of record, Crane Engineering, approximately 2,000 acres located east of I-35 and mile marker 13, which is part of the former Reno Road test track. The zoning for the 7-phase development is M2 and the proposed use is industrial. General location, aerial view, street view, the proposed master plan, comments from planning, fire and traffic safety, and the proposed motion.
Ralph, can you go back to the plat that you showed us there on the phases? Which is the reconsideration was to reconsider phases, is that correct?
Yes, they're doing an adjustment to phase 2, unit 2, and they were actually adding just a small amount of acreage to it. And you'll be seeing that plat in a further on the next item, actually.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Do we have the engineer of record on the line? No?
Yes, sir. I'm here. I just need Kirby to help me undo my video.
Can you hear us, Eddie?
Yeah, I can hear you fine. Okay, there we go. Thank you. Thank you. So good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the commission. Edward Garza with Crane Engineering. We're here on behalf of Majestic Realty. We are just making some slight revisions to the original master plan that we had developed back in 2015. As you all know, there's been quite a bit of activity with regard to the Port Grande development in association with the city, with some recent action by City Council on the TERS to kind of really develop a more comprehensive approach to planning and the development of infrastructure. Majestic Realty does stand behind the approach to do its part as a developer for this area. We've had some very good meetings with the city planning department, traffic department, and the fire department regarding some of the bigger pictures of things. We are aware that TxDOT is enhancing I-35, where we know that there's a lot of planning and work being done by the MPO, the RMA, TxDOT. And so we understand all that's happening in that area. And as this master plan is developing to the next item for the preliminary plat, one of the big topics of discussion has been the beginning of an additional route to the north. You'll see on the preliminary plat in the next item that we are starting that process with north to south arterial. These are 100-foot right-of-ways, north to south, east to west are 90-foot right-of-ways, major industrial type roadways. And ultimately the plan is to work with the city, TxDOT, the MPO as such, through this TERS and this process to properly plan and expand the transportation network. And I say that because in my meetings with the fire department and the traffic department, they had discussed with us the need to widen Uniroyal and Carriers Drive, but within the Unitech Industrial Park. And so that's outside the limits of Port Grande. But we understand the reasoning behind some of those comments. And we believe that those are some of the comments that are derived in the master plan comments tonight. So from a Port Grande standpoint and the fact that Majestic Realty is a stakeholder, we do agree with the comments on the master plan based on the needs to do a more comprehensive approach. And Majestic does stand ready to do its part as a stakeholder in working with the city and with the RMA and the MPO to get this area properly programmed for a better transportation network. So with that, Mr. Commissioner, we do agree with comments on the master plan.
All right, very good. I have a question for you, Eddie. As you're talking about, improvements of transportation within this whole area, it is already a very congested area. Do your plans include, obviously, to have another ingress and egress from this particular site coming up on 35?
Yeah, I think we do, in our master plan, we do have multiple roadways proposed in the long term. I have my engineers involved in the meeting tonight, and they're prepared to show any exhibits if we could share our screen. If not, I could speak to it. We are proposing to extend, like I said earlier, Port Grande Boulevard, which is a 100-foot right-of-way. It'll be a 5-lane major industrial type roadway. The next phase 3, will continue that roadway up to the north to the limits of property acquired by Majestic back when they acquired the test track. When they acquired the test track, they saw the need for a north to south corridor, and they were able to acquire a 100-foot strip of land adjacent to the City of Laredo wastewater treatment plant and the industrial park, Sophia Industrial Park. So Majestic wanted to have the ability to control that, and so they do own that strip of land and will develop that road as the future phases progress. That goes all the way to Doctors Road, as we all know Doctors Road in that area. Right. So once we get to Doctors Road, what needs to happen is we need to continue to extend that road to the north and ultimately tie into some type of a arterial type roadway that will ultimately connect to the Ruthinger interchange on IH-35. And so that is the long-range plan, long-range thinking, and those are some thoughts and meetings we've already had with the city traffic director and TxDOT and as such. And we know TxDOT's already in the process of developing the Ruthinger interchange as part of the schematics and design work. So that's moving forward in that direction.
Okay, so I take it that the Ruthinger family is also involved in this.
At this point, they will have to be. I can't speak for them, but that is going to be part of the process and discussion, especially going forward as we get into the next phase.
Okay.
But those discussions have to be started now, and we understand that. So.
Yes, this is a large area for development, and obviously it's a bottleneck right now in and out.
Correct. No, we understand.
Okay, Very good, thank you. Does anybody in the commission have any questions for Mr. Garza? All right, if nobody has any questions for Mr. Garza, what are the wishes of the commission?
Motion to approve the consideration of the master plan.
We have a motion for Mr. Dovalina. Do we have a second?
Second, Dueñas.
Dueñas seconds. All those who are not in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. With none heard, motion carries. Thank you. The next item is the preliminary consideration of the plat of Port Grande subdivision phase 2, unit 2. The intent is industrial.
General overview, the applicant, Majestic Laredo Logistics Center, LLC, engineer of record, Crane Engineering, approximately 173 acres located east of I-35 at mile marker 13, former unit rural test track, and the proposed use is industrial. General location, aerial view, street view, the proposed plat, comments from planning, engineering, fire, utility coordination, and traffic safety, and the proposed motion.
All right. You said this was a phase 2 is 172 acres. Is that correct? Ralph?
That is correct, Mr. Chairman, yes.
And at 172 acres divided into 7 lots. Did I get that correct too?
Let me see here.
Because that's what I
Yes,
saw.
that is correct. Yes, that is correct.
All right. Thank you. All right. Do we have the engineer of record on?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman, Edward Garza for the record. These are pretty substantial sized lots.
Yeah.
These type of warehouses that the Majestic Realty produces are larger than average, but they have a different market share. And so I don't want to reiterate what I just said on the master plan. I think the comments pretty much are similar in scope. We do agree with them in the sense that we will continue to work to develop solutions for not only traffic safety, but for utilities and drainage as such that all correlate with that. If you notice on the preliminary plat, there's even a floodplain already shown on there, what's existing. But Majestic, we've already completed a CLOMR with FEMA to already get an approval from FEMA. And all environmental work has been completed to that way address that during the design phase. Just to illustrate that, the planning efforts that we're moving forward that try to stay in front of all these issues that are required. So that way we can have a clear, concise approach for our design. So with that, we do agree with staff comments.
Thank you. Does anybody in the commission have any questions for Mr. Garza? With none heard, what are the wishes of the commission?
Motion to approve the preliminary consideration.
Commissioner Lugo, second.
We have a motion from Commissioner Dovalina and a second from Commissioner Lugo. All those who are not in favor of the motion to approve signify by saying aye. With none heard, the motion carries. Thank you. The next item, preliminary consideration of the replat of Lot 120A and Lot 121A, Block 3 of San Isidro Southwest Ambler Crossing Subdivision, Phase 1 into San Isidro Southwest Ambler Crossing Subdivision, Phase 4.
For the record, the applicant, TDB Land Holdings Limited, the engineer of record, Howling Engineering and Surveying Company, approximately 24.25 acre tract located south of San Isidro Parkway and west of Springfield Avenue. The zoning for this 141 lot development is R1A and the proposed use is residential. General location, aerial view, street view. This is the existing and the proposed replat. Comments from planning and traffic safety and parks and leisure, utility coordination, and we do have an additional comment from the utilities department, which was not included in the packet, and the engineer has been advised. And the proposed motion.
Ralph, can you put back the plat that you showed there, the master plan? Can you point out to us these lots 120 and 128 that go from block 3 into phase 4?
Okay, if we could go to the previous slide, please. Okay, so here on the top, you have the 120A and then the 121. So it's currently platted in that configuration. And then they're going to plat into the further subdivided lots. There we go.
Okay, gotcha. All right, thank you, thank you. All right. Okay, do we have the engineer record on?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission staff, Ricardo Villarreal, Howland Engineering and Surveying Company. Just after reviewing the additional comments and the comments by the TRB, we concur with the comments. And if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
Thank you. Does anybody in the commission have any questions for Mr. Villarreal? All right, with no questions, what are the wishes of the commission?
Commissioner Lugo, I'll make a motion to approve subject to the comments and staff.
All right, we have a motion from Commissioner Lugo. Do we have a second?
Second, advice.
Advice seconds it. All those who are not in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. With none heard, motion carries. Next item is the preliminary consideration of the plat of Las Aldeas subdivision phase 1. The intent is residential, mobile home lots.
For the record, the applicant is Garrett Forthuber. The engineer of record is CEC Engineering and Consultants, approximately 31.21 acres, located east of US Highway 83 South and north of Cielito Boulevard and south of Obsidian. The zoning for this 204 lot development is R1MH. And the proposed use is residential mobile home lots. General location, aerial view, street view, the proposed plat or layout, comments from planning and engineering, traffic safety, parks and leisure, utility coordination, and we do have some additional comments that were submitted, not in your packet, from the utility department that have been provided to the engineer of record and the proposed motion.
All right. Do we have the engineer of record on the line?
Good afternoon, Chairman and Commissioners. This is Jaime Garcia with Civil Engineering Consultants representing the developer. We concur with the comments. We just want to comment on one of the items under traffic safety. That will be item number 1, the requirement for a collector connecting from US 83 to La Jolla subdivision. This was a similar comment that was given to us also on the master plan, which we addressed on the last P&Z meeting. And we're requesting the same way that we requested on the previous P&Z meeting, we're requesting on this one if that can be removed, since the need for this collector would be addressed by the traffic impact analysis, which is item number 7.
Okay. All right. Does anybody in the commission have any questions for Mr. Garcia? All right, with no questions heard, what are the wishes of the commission?
Commissioner Lugo, I'll make a motion to approve striking the comment mentioned by the
comment number 1
applicant.
Okay.
Comment number 1.
We have a motion. Do we have a second to that motion? Do we have a second?
Second.
A second by Commissioner Lovalina. All those who are not in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. None heard, motion carries.
Thank you.
I'm sorry? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Preliminary consideration of Lot 1, Block 1, Killam Charco Elementary School. The intent is an elementary school, all right?
For the record, the applicant is Killam Ranch Properties. The engineer of record is Seca Engineering, approximately 12 acres located west of International and north of Hillcroft Road. Portion of this 1 lot development is R1, with the remainder being unzoned since it is outside the current city limits. The proposed use is an elementary school.
Okay.
general location, aerial view, street view, the proposed plat, comments from planning and traffic safety, utility coordination, and then some last minute comments from utilities that were not included in your packet, but have been provided to the engineer of record. And the proposed motion.
All right. Do we have the engineer of record on?
Yes, good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the commission and staff. For the record, my name is Hugo Seca, SEC Engineering, representing the owner. Also with me is Dr. Rolando Ortiz. We went through the items. We agree with most of them. Dr. Ortiz would like to address item 3 on the planning, from the planning department, and item number 1 from the traffic safety department. Dr. Ortiz, please.
Good evening, Commissioner, members of the board. Thank you all for hearing us. My name is Rolando Ortiz, for the record. As Hugo mentioned, with regards to the proposed action, we understand that this final plat approval will be subject to our annexation happening hopefully in June. I want to thank Kirby for working with us on that. What I'm questioning is, in our annexation ordinance already requires a TIA, so it's pretty redundant to have in this comment annexation agreement and TIA. I'd like the word TIA removed prior to approval. And then the traffic safety department, it calls to present a TIA. And as you all well know, there's no requirement in the local government code or the city ordinance to provide TIAs for preliminary plats. So we'd like to remove that. We agree with everything else.
All right. Okay. Do we have Kirby? Do you have any response to what Mr. Ortiz was asking for?
Yes, I do.
All right.
Just as the Planning Commission has the authority to waive some of the requirements that are in the Land Development Code, they also have the ability to add requirements. And this process of having engineers and applicants bring designs also entails that the Planning Commission listen to the comments of staff and make a judgment of whether or not what staff is suggesting is needed. So while there is no explicit requirement at this time for a TIA every time a development is made, it is not outside the authority of city staff to recommend one, and it's definitely not outside the authority of the Planning Commission to require one, should you decide that the city isn't judging right in this condition that a TIA is necessary. A TIA is being produced as part of the annexation, so I don't think it's necessarily redundant. It will be produced as part of the annexation, and I think it's appropriate here as well.
So if you don't mind, Commissioner, so you don't ask for a survey, you don't ask for the boundary survey. I mean, it's a very—
Mr. Ortiz, it would be appropriate to wait for
Mr. Commissioner, do I have the floor?
Go ahead.
Sorry, you'd have to wait for the commission to ask for you to speak again.
All right, let me ask Kirby, are you okay, you made your comments. Does anybody in the commission have any questions on Kirby's comments? All right, with none heard, then yes, go ahead, Mr. Lugo.
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up on I guess both comments by Mr. Dr. Ortiz and Kirby. So Kirby, on your part, I completely understand how you see fit for it to be addressed, but I also having it reissued, what's the the benefit of having it restated in that commission, in that statement, versus what happens if we don't state it? What could happen?
Well, Either way, whether you strike it here, it's still required as part of the annexation agreement. So one is being produced. So I'm not sure why Mr. Ortiz would like it to be striked because either way, a TIA is going to be required for this.
If I can
and then
say a few words, Mr. Commissioner.
Mr. Chair. If he finishes, I'll go ahead and recognize you. Just
thank you.
I'm
all right, Kirby, go ahead and finish.
I'm done.
You're done. All right. Okay, go ahead, Rolly.
Yeah. So, we understand that it's part of the annexation agreement. To me, it just seems like a blatant attempt to try and reiterate this TIA into the formal preliminary plats. And I see it in all of them. Everybody, I guess, is just doing them. But it's not required by the city ordinance. In fact, the Land Development Code, Section 212.103, doesn't allow development of property to be subject to traffic or traffic operations that would result for the proposed use of the development. And I mean, it's kind of like this defeating purpose, right? And it's not in the ordinance, and we would just like to see it removed from these comments. And they shouldn't be on anybody's comments, to be honest with you.
Commissioner, if I could respond to that.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Our experience and the experience of our traffic director is that many of these schools have created traffic issues, and in the past, it really hasn't been assessed. And when we do a TIA, a traffic impact analysis, what that is that's actually a traffic engineer that's calculating the impact that this development will have to the surrounding street network. It's not, a TIA doesn't in itself require anything. It just says, here's the possible impact, here's the likely impact, and what are the mitigations that should be required in order for those impacts to be mitigated. And in the case of schools, what we find is that, and you've seen this around Laredo, where they don't have staging of the vehicles that pick up and drop off students, where they haven't done that on site or haven't planned for it or accounted for it. What you see is during the times when kids are dropped off or picked up at school, it creates traffic congestion issues. Many of you may have experienced that firsthand. So those are the kind of situations we're trying to avoid. That TIA does not in itself require anything of the applicant. What it does is has them demonstrate that they say, hey, it's not going to be a problem. Okay, if it's not, the TIA will demonstrate that. And if they're, and that's all it does. And so if they're right and there's no issue here, nothing to see here, well, great, the TIA will back that up. However, if there is, the traffic impact analysis will show that, yeah, there is going to be some issues and it needs to be mitigated fairly. And again, I'll just reiterate, Land Development Code gives the Planning Commission authority to do many things, to lessen the requirements and also to strengthen the requirements where necessary. And so this is fully within the right of the Planning Commission to, if they agree with staff, to require that a TIA be done.
Kirby, I guess from what I've heard from everybody here, from yourself, from Role, part of the annexation process requires a TIA. Is that correct?
Yes.
So the TIA is going to be done either way.
Right.
All right. Okay. Anybody else on the commission have any questions for either staff or Mr. Ortiz or Mr. Seca? All right. With nobody having any other questions, what are the wishes of the commission?
I propose motion approved, Chairman.
All right, we have a motion for Commissioner Dueñas to approve.
Second, Narvaez.
Narvaez seconds that. Now, the motion that you guys are making, is that striking what Mr. Ortiz wanted or just leaving the comments as they are? Commissioner Dueñas.
Sorry, Chairman, ¿me puedes repetir?
Sí, la moción que hiciste tú ¿Es que se apruebe con todo lo que está ahí escrito o que se apruebe sin las dos cosas que quería el señor Ortiz?
Sí, sin las cosas que quería el señor Ortiz, Chairman, por favor.
Ok, sin las cosas que quería. Así entonces que se apruebe como está presentado por el staff, ¿correcto?
A ver,
Sí,
no, no, no. Sorry, creo que es malentendido. Quiero que se apruebe así con todo está completo.
Perfecto. Okay. All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second, Narvaez.
Commissioner Narvaez, second. All those who are not in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. All right, motion carries. Thank you. The next item.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. Consideration of the following final plats and final replats. We have 7A, 7B, 7C. Can we have a motion so that we can hear them all together?
Commissioner Lugo, make a motion to hear 7A, 7B, and I forgot that. What was that? 7C?
7C.
Together.
All right.
Second.
We have a motion and a second from Commissioner Lovalina. All those who are not in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Motion carries. Can we have a motion now for approval? 7A, 7B, and 7C.
So move, Mr. Chairman.
Got a motion from Commissioner Lovalina. Do we have a second?
Second,
Second, Narvaez.
Second from Commissioner Narvaez. All those who are not in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. None heard. Motion carries. Item 8 is reconsideration of the following final plats and final replats. We got 8A. Does anybody have a motion to approve the final plats and replat? Item 8A.
Motion to approve, Narvaez.
We have Narvaez. A motion.
Juan Dueñas.
I'm sorry, who's the second? Dueñas?
Yes, sir.
Dueñas second. All those who are not in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. None heard. Motion carries. Next item, consideration of the model subdivision compliance. Consideration of the model subdivision rules compliance for the plat of Lot A, Block 10, Crown Ridge subdivision, Phase 1, and 0.04 acre tract of land into lots 8A, 8B, 8C, Block 10, Crown Ridge subdivision, Phase 1. And the purpose of this replat is to incorporate 1.04 acres and subdivide one lot into 3. The intent is residential. Yes, sir. Who's going to make the presentation?
Mr. Chairman, this item has already gotten preliminary final approval. The applicant is Global Realty. The engineer of record is TEC Engineers. Approximately half an acre of land located east of Molly Drive and north of North Star Road. The zoning for this 3-lot development is R-1, residential. This is a general location, aerial view, street view, the proposed plat, and the proposed motion.
All right. Thank you very much. Do we have a motion for approval? Or does anybody in the commission have any questions about this? This is a final plat's already been approved. It's just they're complying with the subdivision ordinance.
Motion to approve, Mr. Chairman.
We have a motion from Commissioner Lovalina. Do we have a second? Do we have a second?
Second, Narvaez.
Narvaez seconds. All those who are not in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. None heard. Motion carries. Item number 10, discussion and recommendation regarding an amendment to section 24.66.4 of the Laredo Land Development Code to clarify the scope of improvements that require historical district landmark board approval. Yes, sir.
Yes, this item is part of an effort of staff now that we've staffed up and we've got more staff and we're developing and training those staff. It's part of an effort to make some improvements in all the boards and commissions that we oversee and the processes that we oversee in this department. There are several changes we're going to be proposing over the next year with the historic district. I have a larger presentation, which I'm going to spare you of unless you have more questions and there's more interest here. Because we're only making one change up front, and then the rest of the changes will come later as we work with the Historic District Landmark Board, but more importantly, as we work with the residents and property owners who live and business owners who live and work in these districts. After we've done a lot of extensive outreach and listening and understanding, and then we'll come back updating the plans and updating the rules and maybe adjusting certain things about the historic district, because as you may or may not be aware, there have been challenges with the historic district. But one straight away that we need to deal with is that there is confusion regarding what requires historic approval and what does not. This is the current ordinance. What the current ordinance says is that no permit shall be issued for the alteration, construction, or demolition of any structure located in a historic district or any locally significant historic landmark without the approval of the historic district, etc. And then item number 2 says no permit shall be issued for the installation of any sign or monument in the historic district without the prior approval of the Historic District Landmark Board. Both of these, as I read them, and I brought this to the Historic District Landmark Board many months ago and said the problem with this is, as I read it, I interpret what this says is that we're only dealing with permitted activity. There's nothing here that says, this is saying is the city can't issue building permits, can't issue permits for someone to do something unless it has historic approval. But what about activity that doesn't require historic approval? What about activity that doesn't require a building permit? What if you want to put up a doghouse? What if you want to put up a bird bath? What if you want to plant a tree? What if you want to hang an address sign on your house? What if you want to get cable and the cable people or the internet people have to install a box on the side of your house? Well, that actually does. Well, I don't know if I don't think that requires a permit. But anyway, that's the question and confusion is, well, is it everything? And what they told me several months ago was, yeah, everything. We want oversight over everything. And the reality of that is that, well, first of all, the public doesn't know that. And so they're doing things and getting cited and fined without knowing where that line is. Or they do know it and they're just not going. Because as you know, with your home, when you make improvements, do you sit down at the beginning of the year and say, hey, here's everything I'm going to do in 1 year for my home? No, you're down at Home Depot and you're like, oh, I like that thing. Let me get that. And so what we're trying to draw in distinction here is that these activities clearly require historic approval and these ones don't. And what we're trying to say is the little things that can be easily changed and also changed back, those we don't care about. What we do care about is preserving the historic structure so that it lasts for generations, for our posterity. We have something beautiful to pass on. But we're not so much concerned about little things that will come and go that don't require a building permit. So what we're proposing is to amend the Land Development Code to have the following language. So we'll keep 1 and 2 there in section 2466-4, but we'll add a number 3, we'll add a 3 and a 4. So number 3 will say, the following activities are exempt from historic district landmark review. Now, this is already in the code. It's just in another section, but I want it to be clean. I want it all in one place because what section 24.66.4 is, these are provisions relating to historic districts and locally significant historic landmarks, specifically talking about what needs approval and what doesn't. So let's add to this section 3 and 4, which make it very clear. These following activities are exempt. The proposed use, interior arrangement, and interior design of any structure, that's already in the code, but I want to put it here. B, repairs and renovations to existing buildings which do not alter the exterior appearance. Again, that's already in the code, just want to move it here so it's clear. C and D, activity which does not require a building permit. Let's make it explicit so it's not an interpretation. D, the addition, repair, or renovation of utilities and services such as power, water, sewer, and communication lines. Again, want to make it clear so it's not open to interpretation that when you're providing services to any historic structure, that doesn't need to require historic approval. That's necessary to serve the building. And then finally, in number 4, we want to add an administrative approval process where the Historic District Landmark Board may authorize staff to administratively approve activities which do require board approval. So in other words, those things which do require approval, they don't all have to go to the board. If the board decides, you know what, planning staff, with these things, with some of these things that do require approval, because we see them a lot, and maybe we can just pick a range of certain things that are okay to do, and we can say, you know what, as staff, you can approve those administratively. That way someone doesn't have to wait 4 to 6 weeks to get approval of something. They could do it in a day as long as we meet certain parameters. We're not defining those parameters here. We're just giving the authority to the board to give authority to staff when they choose to, and that would be decided at a later meeting. Now, just to give you some examples of what's permitted and what's unpermitted. Permitted work on the left column is structural. It's tall side obscuring fences, electrical fixtures, roofing, stucco siding work, utility work, pools, plapas, building additions, windows, ingress, egress, driveways. It's basically big permanent things that are costly. What's unpermitted are the opposite. They're non-permanent things that, typically that don't require a lot of money and are easy to change. Landscaping, short see-through fences, non-electrical fixtures, doors, and painting. Now, we presented this motion to the Historic Landmark Board, and they recommended approval, but they wanted to retain control over a few things. I would recommend, our recommendation as staff is to recommend approval as it's written, because we do need a clear definition, which the Historic Board agreed with, but we also want to give back more control to the property owners to allow them to make decisions, especially over the small things, the activities that don't require a building permit. So we would recommend to the Planning Commission, which is required to send a recommendation to the City Council, give it based on the charter. We would recommend that you recommend approval as written. Any questions?
Kirby, can you put back the, I believe it was where you're recommending, right there, existing, let me see here, item 3, number B, repairs and renovations to existing buildings which do not alter the exterior appearance. What are you trying to clarify by that statement?
Well, that is already in the code.
I know. That's what I'm saying. Why are you, oh, that's existing. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm putting it here because I don't want someone to be confused by looking in 2 different places. I want it here so okay. all the code that it regards what you can and can't, what does and doesn't require approval, I'd like it all in one place so it's easy reference for whoever.
No, I agree with you. That makes a lot of sense. All right. Okay. And of course, on the utility side of this thing, most of this areas have front lot construction. Utilities are in the street. So what would you be thinking of on letter D?
Letter D, most of the time, almost all these properties are already platted lots that have utilities right there. But we had this example come up just the other day where somebody wanted to get internet that didn't have it. And so they thought, well, I got to wait 6 weeks to get approval to stick a communications box on the side of the home. And, that is the question. If somebody wants to get cable or internet, that's probably more likely than them redoing their water lines or power lines. But those kind of things are done based on safety and based on best practices. And to try to take into account design as well, I think is asking a little too much for servicing these properties. But most of those services are already there. Well, we've got a balance. Why our historic district is different from most of the historic districts in the country, and especially the others in the state, is because what you find in most historic districts is that they're located in some of the highest demographic areas of the city. Their property values are some of the highest in the city. And when someone redevelops a property, they have a lot of money. Well, as you all can imagine, Laredo is quite an exception to that. It's in our inner city that we have some of the lowest values and some of the lower income residents and property owners who struggle and we don't want to make it even harder for them to renovate, to improve their properties. We don't want to put barriers in the way. So we're trying to be cognizant of that, giving them control, trusting them with some of these little things that they don't need to come to the board for approval. But most importantly, making it a clear line with the code so that it's not confusing for the public or for staff what does and doesn't require approval. Saying building permit activity requires approval and non-building activity doesn't require building permit, doesn't require store approval is very clean, it's very simple, and it's very easy to enforce, which is why I'm recommending it.
Very good. Does anybody on the commission have any questions for Kirby or any clarifications that you wish? With nothing heard, what are the wishes of the commission?
Motion to recommend approval of the amendment, Dovalina.
We have a motion by Commissioner Dovalina. Do we have a second?
Second, Narvaez.
Second by Commissioner Narvaez. Those who are not in favor of the motion to approve signify by saying aye. With none heard, motion carries. Thank you. Next item is the director's comments.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much for bearing with us with the technical difficulties we had. I think we'll go with Zoom from now on, but hopefully, like Commissioner Villarreal said, we will be meeting in person soon. I'll know more on Monday when the council meets, and I'll be working with Commissioner Villarreal to schedule the venue. And again, my recommendation would be to wait until we can meet 100%, where we can invite the public in. If we can't invite the public in, and we've got to do an in-person meeting, but also manage, it's going to be very difficult because there's cameras and stuff. I mean, the council does it because they have a lot of staff, support staff there. But for us, it's just the planning staff and then PAC that's recording this. But it would be difficult. Not impossible, but it'd be really difficult. And this is working. So my recommendation would be to wait till we can get the public in too. But it'll ultimately be Commissioner Villarreal's decision, the venue, where we go. So I'll be communicating with him on that. And then finally, I just want to say, as I always do, thank you very much for your service. For the public that may be watching, you don't get paid for what you do here. You're volunteers, and your service means a lot to your city. We couldn't do this without you. Your role is to have oversight over us, over staff. And we know that you may not always agree with us, and that's fine, because this city belongs to you, and that's your role as a planning commission. So thank you very much for your service, and we will see you in a couple weeks.
All right. Thank you all very much. Have a good evening.
Thank you. See you.
All right.
Cheers.
Thank you, everybody.
All right.